I wanted to share some thoughts that I had about the current state of the comic industry, and some thoughts that I have about trends that I've noticed in some of the newer titles and everything related to it. But I thought I would start by addressing the renaissance of sorts that's occurred in the past couple of years. I think you can kind of pinpoint the dates around when DC did their all-in line and gave pretty much all their titles new number one issues, and the Absolute line, which came shortly after that, and Marvel's second swing at the Ultimates universe, and several other indie creators as well. But yeah, it's a new wave, and I think it's difficult to pinpoint exactly what it is that's driving it. But I think there's a collective renewed interest from readers everywhere, especially when creators are given, they're allowed their full artistic license. They create an auteur-esque imprint. They're like your favorite filmmakers of sorts. They're not just making the title for the title's sake. They're actually adding something distinct to it. And I have some information provided by Walt's Comic Shop. That was the name of the website. But the best-selling titles in May 2026. So from 1 to 10, we have Absolute Green Arrow number 1, Absolute Batman number 20, Batman number 9, Daredevil number 2, Absolute Catwoman number 1, the pre-order, it was specified as the pre-order, Absolute Wonder Woman number 20, Absolute Superman number 19, Absolute Martian Manhunter number 11, Invincible Universe's Battle Beast, and Lobo number 3. Now, what we can notice from this list right off the bat, 8 of the 10 titles were from DC, and 6 of those 8 were the Absolute titles. And the Absolute universe is kind of special because I feel for a lot of the naysayers and the critics, they think it's just kind of a boring reskin, very much just making a mountain out of a molehill with a kind of alt-universe, Elseworlds what-if idea. But I personally feel, especially amongst the main trinity, that they found a way to tell a greatly different story while not betraying the original spirit of the characters, and especially because these are characteristically darker stories, but they don't feel needlessly edgy at any point. It doesn't feel like they're really just scrambling to do something different and then giving us something that really nobody can connect to in the process. I mean, for example, I think with Absolute Batman, I would say, I think it might sound basic, but I think it's easily my favorite of the titles. And Absolute Batman Volume 1, so the first 6 issues, or that first trade paperback, if you're going the trade paperback route, was pretty standard Batman fare. I mean, it introduces the world, it reintroduces the characters, it establishes what's different about this world, but story-wise, it's kept simple. It's just an entry point, but then from Volume 2, it picks up like crazy. I believe after the first 6 issues, they did that 2-issue break to show us what Mr. Freeze of this universe looks like, and he's demonic, to say the least. But frankly, that's a universal term to describe just about any of the characters in this Absolute line, particularly the Batman title. But Volume 2 of Absolute Batman is where it really picked up for me. Volume 2 was the arc with Bane, and it was violent and gruesome, and frankly, if you're not paying close enough attention to some of the story elements and the imagery, it's gonna look like they've just sent Batman off the deep end, and as though he's killing all of a sudden. Although there is a little bit of a suspension of disbelief. I mean, because Absolute Batman is gigantic. If you've seen the images, and his chest emblem actually detaches into a battle axe, and a battle axe is effectively useless if you don't plan to dismember people and sever their limbs from them. And he does that. He does quite a lot of that. But somehow, within the storytelling, they make it feel justified. And once again, he's still if I'm not wrong, he's still abiding by a no-kill rule. But they're finding ways to push the limits without taking it too far. And I think that it's really cool that Scott Snyder, the writer, has found this take on the character, because he's made what is considered a quintessential modern Batman run with his stuff in the New 52. I know the New 52 line isn't the favorite of everybody. I personally thought there was some good stuff in there, and he has these two right here, the Court of Owls saga. I mean, if you oftentimes hear of people wanting particular Batman stories to be adapted for animation or for a movie or Matt Reeves' sequel or whatever, oftentimes you hear them talk about the Court of Owls, and it is a great story, but it definitely, and this isn't a disadvantage, I would say, but it very much plays to the classical ideas of Batman. And I think it's really cool that he found an inverse, but not necessarily an opposite, with the absolute iteration of the character. But yeah, I think I might have talked about Absolute Batman for a little bit too long. But they've done the same things with Superman and with Wonder Woman as well. I mean, I think especially with Wonder Woman, kind of is a good example of kind of a one-line pitch of the Absolute Universe as a whole, because you could pitch it as, what if Wonder Woman came from hell instead of from paradise? And that kind of makes it clear for people that it's the same characters, but something crucial about their origin, something that's made them the cultural juggernauts that we know them to be, something is slightly changed, but somehow they're still the characters that we know and love. And I think, you know, it's really miraculous, because practically all their titles are like hitting number one, like they're the number one seller whenever they come out. I mean, Absolute Green Arrow #1 is they finally got around to that, and it sold really well. I myself still haven't read it. I picked up the first issue a while back, and I think on that list, but the two non-DC titles are Daredevil and the Battle Beast comic. I think Daredevil, it's written by Stephanie Phillips, is what it says. I have not picked up this run. I'll probably catch it in trades, maybe. I mean, as is with anybody, I don't think there's a comic reader or just a reader of anything, or a consumer of any kind of media in the world who doesn't have an embarrassingly long backlog list. I mean, mine is genuinely mortifying. But the Daredevil title, it's on its second issue, and it might be, you might think that it's kind of riding the synergy with some of the with the Marvel Studios adaptation with Daredevil Born Again, or it could just be the excitement of a new title, which I think it might be what it is. I mean, it's only the #2 issue. I don't think anybody ever really picks up a new series and completely quits after the first issue, because a lot, and also at the same time a little, is accomplished in the first issue. So issue 2 is likely to still be finding itself. And there's a lot that could be discussed with regards to the Battle Beast title. Now, Robert Kirkman is clearly a very smart guy. I mean, you know, he's made these very extensive, long-running titles that have become cultural staples, like The Walking Dead. If you didn't know that was a comic at first, that comic was created by him. I believe it's a 140 issue run. not including spin-offs and one-shots and whatever, and Invincible, which I have. I'm not going to pull it off the shelf because it'll hurt if I drop it. But I think it's really interesting that he's come back around to do the Battle Beast title. Now, like I mentioned, I have a whole lot of backlogs, and I'm a recovering FOMO buyer. And Battle Beast was one of the titles that didn't make it past the first issue for me because I realized I was picking up a whole bunch of titles and I was reading them much slower than I was getting them. So, but I got the first issue and then I picked up the first trade, and I read the first issue, and the first issue is really compelling. And I think once again, it's like you got to give credit to Robert Kirkman, because his ability to capitalize on his own work and to spread its popularity, and then to create spin-offs. Because I believe this isn't the only Invincible spin-off that's on the stands right now. I believe there's another series called Capes, which I think that's what it is running parallel to Battle Beast. Battle Beast is currently in its second volume, I believe, and they're marketing it as Battle Beast fighting Conquest, and Conquest has obviously exploded in popularity because of the previous 2 seasons of Invincible. But yeah, you gotta admire his ability to regulate his IP the way he does, because he's effectively everywhere. I mean, he's doing the series. He reprinted the series in the original comic series in the omnibus format, and he's still adding new entries to the franchise. So yeah, that's pretty cool. But I've been talking a bit about my own pull list. My own pull list right now only has 2 titles, because once again, I was a big time FOMO buyer, and that was just no good for anybody. I mean, it does eventually, it ruins the enjoyment. I mean, the inroad into FOMO buying is that you think that you're going to enjoy it. There's a sense of gratification in bulk buying, but then you realize that you're effectively ruining the enjoyment for yourself. But the only 2 titles I have right now are Scott Snyder's Absolute Batman and Matt Fraction's Batman. Now, I realize that makes me like, how you say, a very stereotypical DC audience. I mean, I would be lynched for this pull list by people, because I'm effectively the reason why DC keeps just juicing the Batman IP, because he sells, and not only does he sell, but he always attracts very distinct, very accomplished creators, and then they magically always want to provide some of their best ever work to create a new story. I mean, I think that's true of his film adaptations, and for the comics, and his animated series as well. One of the greatest of all time. But yeah, I think the industry is very much enjoying this alternative phase. I mean, there's just a lot more. There are a lot more people in comic stores. There are a lot more, and I think there are many more formats. It's more accessible than ever. I mean, there's the omnibus, which I would show you an example of what an omnibus is in case for some reason you don't know. But it's too large. There's an omnibus for those who want that. Sometimes entire runs only require 1 volume to be completed. There's the trade paperback, or the hardcover, which I might have. I'm not going to reach for that. And also single issues, and not that's before we incorporate the new compact kind of digest size trend, DC's compact comics, which are those right here. And I have one of the Marvel Premiere Collection. It's over there, but I'm not going to take that right now. And yeah, there's a format for everybody, and there's also a title for everybody. And it instills hope that the medium can continue to grow and evolve and appeal to even wider ranges of people. But I think it's not a singular. It's not just it's not like a miracle. I would say. I mean that's not the best way to phrase it. I would say the industry as a collective has worked for this point, because it's not just about giving a bunch of new number ones, because I mean anybody can do that really, but it's about creating intrigue. I mean Marvel did it with their Ultimate Universe, but also they're an interesting case of ways in which it could go wrong, because their Ultimate Universe, I don't have 100% the correct information about it, but I believe Jonathan Hickman was kind of the architect of the concept, because I believe he wrote the first few issues of Ultimate Spider-Man, which I read. I read a couple of the others as well. Denise Camp's Ultimates and the Ultimate X-Men title. I read a little bit of just about of most of them, and they kind of closed up shop on that continuity really fast. And I think that didn't quite resonate with the readers. You know, there was a lot of I saw a lot of discussion that they wished it could have gone on longer, but it didn't for whatever reason, because I think Marvel Comics tends to move in lockstep with whatever the public conversation surrounding any of their properties is at the moment. So, for example, if with Avengers Doomsday is coming later this year, and there is a lot of Doom-related stuff going on. I know there was a big event, I think One World Under Doom or something, and you see a lot of that synergy. And I think synergy isn't always the worst thing, because just recently at the Annecy Animation Festival, they announced that DC Studios is already making an adaptation of Absolute Batman, which depending on who you are, you could think it's a good thing or a bad thing. I think I'm leaning much more heavily towards good thing, because it seems like they're kind of following the Invincible model of allowing the original creator of the series to have meaningful word in the creation of the adaptation. Because if I'm not wrong, I believe Nick Dragotta as well, the artist, is also part he's involved in a major way with the adaptation. And I saw online, I think it was a tweet, where somebody mentioned how the success of that show will determine whether or not American comics essentially follow the manga to anime pipeline, which I think could be really interesting. It's not without precedent. I mean, a lot of the classic DC titles like Dark Knight Returns or an All-Star Superman and several others have adaptations in animated film, which effectively all the DC animated movies that were like a direct adaptation of a popular title, I really liked. But at the same time, their primary reason for existing is synergy, is just you like the comic, so we're gonna make a movie. So if you read the comic, you can watch the movies, it's effectively the same thing, but then the movies would cut out something. They would actually cut out quite a bit, I believe. I think the All-Star Superman animated edition, there's a big chunk of the story missing, but I still like it. But it's not but it's kind of the preface for what could happen, which I think we'll have to see, because they only just announced it. They're still working on it. They have a lot of work to do, and Absolute Batman is currently at its 21st or 22nd issue. So that's about 4 volumes worth of content that they can pull from. And obviously, you know, an adaptation of something always adds its own flair. They can add characters or add more story because they're different medium. They're different kinds of media. And I think if they're not going for synergy, and if they're actually retelling the story in an interesting way, then I think this can only be a good thing. I think it's really exciting, and I think with the DC universe, they definitely played a major hand in renewing public interest in comics. I mean, last summer when Superman came out, they definitely made a major part of the marketing the comics that they were drawing from. And I think that was a really smart move. And it actually, especially because in the movie you can actually kind of notice which elements come from where. Especially, I think the two pillars ended up being All-Star and Birthright, which are both amazing stories, which you should absolutely read. But there was a general movement surrounding DCU in which they promised reverence to the comics, which I think they've done a good job on so far. I think the Supergirl movie, which I saw recently, which was I actually quite liked. I would say that my complaints with it can be easily reduced to I wish they left in this from the comic. I wish they did that from the comic. I wish they didn't do this particular part. But that's just nitpicking. But I think it did something different, and I quite liked it. And I think promoting the film and the comic in lockstep with each other does a bit more for the comic, but I'm still excited to see what else they have. I mean, I still believe that they're gonna put out a bunch of other movies and series with the same reverence to the source material that they promised that they would include. But yeah, I think overall it's an interesting time for the industry, and I'm excited to see what else comes next.